Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from downtown Baton Rouge, this is Hunt Palmer.
He's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from our studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. Means we're brought to you by Sagrera Farms, Premium Angus Beef. Jacob Beck, Taylor Sharp back there on the ones and twos. Fired up, you're hanging out with us for the next couple of hours. Working towards the weekend and lots to do over those 2 hours. Marlon Favorite, Big Fave, with me on the LSU Sports Radio Network, 2007 national champ. Going to come on at 1:30, talk some Tigers. LSU's defense been pretty good. Fave and BT, who I hang out with on Saturdays, really like it when the defense plays well. And it hasn't played well for a while. We'll talk to Fave coming up in 30 minutes. Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, here at 2:15. Brian Kelly show this evening at 7 o'clock. So we'll talk about that with Chris Blair. And Luke Johnson, covering the Saints, will be with us at 2:30. I want to talk a little bit about the Heisman odds that are coming out here after 3 weeks of action. How many teams can win the Southeastern Conference? We'll talk about that as well. So let's crank it up the way we do every single day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
So Bill Barnwell's got a story up on ESPN.com right now that is interesting. It is ranking the 0-2 teams in the NFL. There are 10 of them. And yes, he has the Saints ranked 9th. It's not a shocking development. He does say the Browns are worse than the Saints. But there were some interesting pieces in the analysis that I think are a little bit more important than where he has the Saints ranked, because as we've discussed ad nauseum, we're not really that concerned with where the Saints rank in the National Football League right this very second, because they're not really going anywhere this year. But what's the most important thing about this current Saints roster? Well, it's probably the young players. But right there behind it, if not maybe a little bit in front of it, I can listen to either suggestion. It's the coaching staff. It's Kellen Moore, and it's Brandon Staley, and it's putting a foundation in to try to get out of this rut that the front office has put them in, right? And the wins and losses are not going to reflect the positives that this coaching staff is doing, because they quite simply do not have the horses to run this race. But that doesn't mean that you can't coach well. And that's an important step for this franchise. Kellen Moore is going to handle that offense. And I feel like there's a pretty good chance that Brandon Staley handles the defense for a few years. Coordinators come and go, yes. But Brandon Staley's stint with the Chargers did not go very well. He was not well received nationally. His reputation wasn't great in the league because the thought was that those rosters were really, really good, and he didn't really get anything out of them. So I don't think anybody's beating down the door to hire Brandon Staley away if the Saints field a couple of good defenses. So what I'm saying is I think the Saints have a chance to keep Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley in place for a few years. And if they do a really good job, that's a huge, huge positive for your team. And we can sit there and watch what the Saints are doing offensively, sit there and watch what the Saints are doing defensively. But I do think some of the numbers that I certainly can't monitor while we're watching the game and don't have access to the ridiculous metrics that ESPN do, some of these numbers were encouraging to me. For instance, and the line says that Staley's defense is letting its freak flag fly. I think some of these numbers are good. According to Next Gen Stats, the Saints are having defenders drop off the line of scrimmage a league high almost 52% of the time. They're disguising things. They're doing things out of the ordinary because they know that they don't have elite players on the defensive side of the ball. They've also led the NFL in creepers, meaning guys approaching the line of scrimmage, as well as simulated pressures. They're doing that at a 12% rate. That leads the NFL. As Bill Barnwell writes, it's a necessary reality for a team that doesn't have the talent to win by simply rushing its front four. The pressure looks help the Saints define protections and create potential one-on-ones. And that's coaching. That's coaching is having to make up for a talent deficiency. And if you're doing things that are creative, that are cutting edge, that are giving opposing teams some issues, even though at times the players that you've got aren't able to take advantage of those, that's as good as you can hope for from a coaching perspective. And I like the fact that the Saints are being as creative as anyone at the line of scrimmage defensively. I think that's a really, really good look for Brandon Staley. Now, I wish Mac Jones didn't light the Saints up last week. I wish that Pete Werner did a better job in coverage. I wish DeMario Davis was 6 years younger. I wish that you didn't lose one of your new starting safeties for the year after one game. Like, I wish all of these things were true. I wish Chase Young had played. But I think Brandon Staley, statistically and from a creativity perspective, is doing a pretty good job, and I like that. The secondary ranks 25th in EPA per play when the pass rush doesn't get home. That's just a product, I think, of youth, of Kool-Aid McKinstry, of Alontae Taylor. These guys are pretty young. Now you got Jonas Sanker in there, and you're not covering great. Like, they didn't do a great job against Marvin Harrison Jr. I get it. They didn't do an awesome job against Kyle Shanahan's offense in coverage. But while you coach those guys up, if you're being creative, I think that's a real positive. The Saints also offensively, if we switch to Kellen Moore's group, they're doing something that leads the NFL right now. And I didn't realize this. Like, I'm watching the game, and I do get a sense that they do want to play quickly. That's very common for young offensive coaches. The Saints are the fastest team in the NFL, as Barnwell writes, by a considerable margin. They're going very quick. They're not allowing defenses to completely set up. They're trying to simplify things for Spencer Rattler, who is throwing the ball a lot. He's thrown 80 passes through 2 weeks, and Chris Olave and Juwan Johnson are two of the league's 12 players that have 20 targets apiece. So, as Barnwell writes, they're leaning into tempo. They're making Rattler's life easier in terms of seeing fewer exotic blitzes. If defenses can't communicate a lot pre-snap, it limits what they can do. Everybody's got to be on the same page on defense. You can't have busts. And so if you go quickly, you may make things a little easier. And I don't know if Kellen Moore would play this quickly if he had a prime Drew Brees there. You might want to take a little bit more time and make sure that you're getting things complex on the offensive side because you've got a guy that can handle that. But in this case, you don't have a veteran. You don't even have one on the roster. So you're doing things to help with that. And I didn't realize the Saints are playing the quickest of anybody. Rattler has been sacked on only 4.6% of his dropbacks this season. That's above league average. You know your right guard's not playing well, and both your tackles are quote-unquote new. The rookie's a left tackle, and on the right side, you've got a guy who's playing right tackle for the first year, who's a second-year player. So you're effective in keeping Rattler upright by playing quick, by allowing him to get the ball out quickly. All of these things are positives to me with the way the Saints are being coached. I am well aware you've got a young offensive line that's playing horrendously at right guard. I'm well aware that your running back is past his prime. I'm well aware that you don't have a game changer at tight end. I'm well aware that you don't have an elite number one wide receiver. Chris Olave is a nice player. Does he stack up with the number ones across the NFL? I would suggest no. Like, the horses aren't good enough to run this race, as I said to start. But I like the fact that some of the Saints' tendencies, some of the things that they've done through 2 weeks, suggest that they're being coached well. Ultimately, Kellen Moore is going to be judged on wins and losses. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, he's not going to be judged on wins and losses this year to the extent that he will ultimately. If things go atrociously and you lose every game on your schedule, we'll have a different discussion. I don't anticipate that that's going to happen. But I don't think there's a huge difference in going 3-14 and 5-12. I think those are essentially the same. This is not a wins and losses discussion. This is a creativity, innovation, and then playing to what you have. It's going to be on the front office and some of these coaches to make sure you restock these shelves come draft time, make prudent free agent acquisitions, find a couple of guys that are undrafted that can make your team and make a contribution. The overhaul with personnel is going to take time. It just is. But the guys that you feel like are going to help lead this charge are already in place. And I learned some things in this piece that suggest that they're doing some things well. Kellen Moore screwed up the beginning of the end of the first half in terms of using his timeouts in the first game. He absolutely did. That was indefensible. His answer going into the halftime locker room stunk. I wouldn't phrase it any other way. But let's just see if that happens again or if he learned from that. It's the first time that he's been a head coach ever. First time he's had to make those decisions ever. Now, I've never done it either, and I'm sitting on my couch going, shouldn't they be using some timeouts here? So to me, like, it's not excusable, but I will allow for a first-time head coach to make a mistake here or there, especially early in the season. But as long as we see progression from that perspective and you see them doing things like this that are noticeable in the analytics that may not show up on the win and loss marquee that you see every Sunday on the pregame show, that's a positive. And like, I'm just not really in the mood to sit here from August through Christmas and just dump on the Saints every single day because their team's not good. Like, that's not fun. Nobody wants to listen to that, and it's repetitive. So when I see something that is a positive, like, I'm going to point it out. I'm going to highlight it because you always have hope. And that hope is dwindling for this year, and I don't know if anybody really had much of it. But for the franchise, for moving forward, I feel like stuff like this is a positive. So I wanted to highlight that as we got started today on our Thursday show. We're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. That's our black and gold discussion for hour number one. We'll get back into it with Luke Johnson in hour number two. Marlon Favorite here in about 20 minutes. When we come back, Davhon Keys met with the media on Tuesday evening, and I really enjoyed our conversation from a print perspective. We'll hear some of the things he had to say to the TV crew as well. We'll do that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Davhon and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If your home is 20, 25, pushing 30 years old, David tells me that that's about the time you start to see some of the issues in the bathroom really start to rear their ugly head. Depending on frequency of use, the construction, the type of things that are in your bathroom. If you're starting to see wear and tear, if you're starting to see a decrease in functionality, and sounds like, yeah, I wasn't here when we built this home, but I think it's about 25 years old, we'll start thinking about making some changes in your bathroom. You can do a full-scale renovation. David and his team can take out showers. They can put showers in. They can take out bathtubs. They can put bathtubs in. They can handle your flooring, your vanities. All of that can be done at One Bath and Closets, but they can also do simple things like a tub to shower conversion as well. So if you'd like to look into what may be possible for your bathroom as things start to age, David Davhon and his team are happy to help you with that. Go to the website, onebathandclosets.com, and request that free consultation. Just sit down with David and talk about it. He's got so much experience, so much knowledge, so much expertise. He can help customize your bathroom exactly the way that you want it customized. It's One Bath and Closets. Check him out online, onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Chugging along here, Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Marlon Favorite with you in 15 minutes. You know, there are some things in life that you want the best in. There are some things in life you're just okay kind of getting by. Beef is one of those things that I want it to be good. I don't have a lot of patience and time for cheap, low-quality beef. And a lot of that's out there. There's a huge, huge shortage right now in terms of beef. You're seeing that reflected in prices. It's tough to get some of the best beef, unless you're right here in Baton Rouge, because Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef has a ton of it on the farm just 30 miles outside of Baton Rouge. So if you want prime Angus beef for your ground beef, for your steaks, call Sean Sagrera at Sagrera Farms. I've told you this quite a few times, but I think it bears repeating. It's pretty easy to comprehend. You're talking about select beef that makes up about 30% of what's out there. It's on an IMF score. It's a 1 to 3. You get to the choice, that's about 60% of the beef that's out there. That's 3 to 8% or so. You get north of 9, that's your prime Angus beef. North of 9. Sean had a vet out to the farm to do ultrasounds. They're not guessing here. They actually know what the IMF content is in these cows. They've got a bunch of 11s, 12s, 13s, 14s, 16s, 18s. There's a 20 on the farm that he showed me last week. This is some of the best beef in America, and it's available to you right here in Baton Rouge. You can fill your freezer with it. So when it's time to put burgers on the grill, you thaw some out, got some of the best beef going. When it's time to grill some steaks to watch the game on a Saturday night, you got ribeyes, fillets, strips, skirts, all that prime right there in your freezer. Do beef a little bit differently. Call Sean Segura. Go up to the farm. Take a tour. You can see the animal that you're going to bring home. Call them at 225-719-1723. 225-719-1723. There's no deposits involved. It's just a different way to do your beef. Go to the farm and get some Segura Farms premium Angus beef. All right, talk to some players back on Tuesday. I wrote about this this morning at LouisianaSports.net. They tend to run together at times. And we talked to two different defensive players every week. We've talked to Whit Weeks. We talked to West Weeks. We talked to Deshaun Spears, Davhon Keys. We've talked with Jack Pyburn. We've spoken with Mansour Delane. We've talked to a lot of them. And what has struck me, and this is what I wrote about, is they all kind of look and sound the same. They're happy. They're smiling. They say they're having fun. They talk about being together, the cohesiveness that they have. And I'm well aware. I've covered enough teams and spoken to enough players. I've covered teams that have won national championships. I've covered teams that have stunk in all sports. And winning helps. There's no question. Winning helps the interview sessions. It just does. When teams are winning, people are happier. But this group really seems to be singing the same song. And it's refreshing every Tuesday when we chat with him. Davhon Keys was no different back on Tuesday. He's not a starter on this defense. You got Whit and West, and those two guys man the starting positions. But as you know, you've had a targeting foul in the Florida game, and Davhon Keys had to come in, and he spoke about stepping in that spot.
You always look forward to getting to go out and play with your brothers. It was unfortunate how it happened, but it's always next man up. We've been preaching that since the beginning of the season. We know we have a great team. Everyone's looking forward for their chance to play, so you just got to stay ready and be ready to play with your brothers.
One of the biggest things with this defense, and I talked about this back on Tuesday, is the remarkable depth that's been cultivated here at every level of the defense. And I went into depth about that on Tuesday's show. But linebacker certainly qualifies because you saw Whit Weeks go down with targeting. Keys steps in. You saw West go down with the calf injury. You saw Tylen Singleton come in. You've got Harold Perkins, who basically plays a linebacker role on this team as well. And you've got extra bodies that are able to come in and you don't miss a beat. Davhon Keys led the team in tackles on Saturday, and he wasn't a starter. He played after the first drive of the game, but he wasn't a starting player based on the quote-unquote ability level. You feel you got two guys who are better players. That's why they start. Keys comes in and lead the team in tackling. He spoke about the depth in the linebacker room.
From the offseason, I knew we were going to be something special. Everyone in the linebacker room is locked in. You could throw anyone out there. They know what they're doing. They're flying around. They're making plays. And it was really great getting to play with, Zach and Tylen, those guys who don't really get game experience, getting to see them go fly around and have fun out there.
That's one of the things that they all say is that they feel like that it's next man up, and that this is the big part of that quote. Everyone knows what they're doing. That is something that Whit Weeks harped on last week. And we kind of asked him, what's the difference? You played on this defense 2 years ago. It wasn't Blake Baker's defense, but you were on the LSU defense 2 years ago when it was a train wreck, and this one feels like it's one of the best in the country. And I'm what's different? Everybody knows where they're going. That's something he harped on. Davhon Keys brought it up completely. And they all have an understanding of what they are doing on the field. And that's a huge testament to the position coaches and the coordinator, Blake Baker. And Keys talked about learning linebacker from Blake Baker.
There's a lot I've learned. He's real specific on his technicals, so keeping your pads low, keeping your eyes up. A lot of small details that you don't really get from most coaches, and that's what I think sets him apart from others, is that he focuses on the technical and not only making the tackle, but how you made the tackle. Are you in the right body position, the right angle, things like that.
They do a lot of detailed work over there on the practice field, in the film room. They do AI stuff. They do a lot of detailed work. But one thing that you got to have is reps. And Davhon Keys got some of those reps last year playing linebacker. He played more as the season went on, especially when Harold Perkins got hurt. He just got thrust into more action. And this year, he wasn't really projected as a starter. Whit and West were the starters all of fall camp. But Whit was on a pitch count. And Davhon Keys got a lot of reps, and he spoke about how helpful that was, that while Whit was taking some time and they weren't going to overwork him, Keys got those reps.
I think it helped a lot, especially with getting that chemistry with West. Will's not really a position I played. I played a lot of star last year. I played Mike before that. So getting to take that time at Will got me a lot more comfortable, and the chemistry with West as well. So say Whit needs a breather, I'm able to go in and we don't miss a beat.
It's just part of the depth that they've built. This group has someone to step up at every spot on the field. Quite literally, you can't name someone outside of Perkins. Perkins is a skill set that I don't think anybody can really replicate. And I don't want Whit Weeks to go down, and I don't want Mansour Delane to go down. And like I don't want to lose AJ Halsey. Like there are plenty of guys that you want to keep on the field, but there's someone waiting in the wings everywhere, just about star, that is ready to play. And Davhon Keys certainly fits that bill. Now here is the overarching theme that I'm getting at, that I wrote about this morning in that story at LouisianaSports.net, when Keys talks about the standout trait of this linebacker group.
It's really about being unselfish. We definitely have a lot of that in our room. It's everybody's playing for the team, whether it's special teams or defense. Everyone's ready for their name to be called, ready to run down on kickoff. They're ready to go in at any moment. And that's something that really gives you confidence in the linebacker room, because, you know, everyone's playing for each other. No one's playing for themselves.
It would mean less if Davhon Keys said that and like 5 of his defensive teammates had not mentioned the exact same thing in a different week with different reporters. Like it's something they keep talking about. And again, I want to cover my tracks here. I understand that things are always better when you're undefeated. I've done enough of these interviews to know that's the case. Things are better when you're undefeated. But the fact that they keep saying this kind of stuff, I just like what I hear. This to me, it sounds to me like the 2023 baseball team. Now, that team had a literally generational pitcher and maybe the best position player in the history of the school. And I understand that that's a big part of why they won the national championship. But you constantly heard those guys talking about being selfless. It was the Cade Belosos and Gavin Dugas's, and Trey Morgan played 2 positions. And you had guys getting yo-yoed in and out of the rotation like Riley Cooper and Ty Floyd. And like you just never heard any complaining. Gavin Guidry went from shortstop to closer. Whatever. Just whatever you need. They talked like this. And this team has talked like this for a month and a half. And I've noticed it. It doesn't mean they're going undefeated. It doesn't mean they're making the playoff. It doesn't mean they're winning a national championship. It doesn't mean they're not going to lose to Ole Miss next week. But I've just noticed it. And I'm passing it along to you as someone who's talking to these players when most of you are not. They all sound the same, and they talk about being selfless, and they talk about going for one goal. It's been very, very refreshing to hear. Now you'll hear the difference that Davhon Keys talks about in the defense this year as they've gotten off such a good start.
Part of it is just a second year under Coach Baker. He learned how we learn, and he's able to tailor how he teaches the defense so we can better understand it and fly around more free. And then another part of it is just the energy. The energy has been incredible, especially compared to last year. And that's really something you look for in the defense. You want high energy so everyone's flying around and confident and having fun.
That's interesting with the energy, because Blake Baker is super high energy, and I wrote about that last week at LouisianaSports.net about like all the defensive players talking about how much energy he has, and he wears cleats to practice, and he's running around and yelling, and he's always got juice. And I'm fascinated to hear Davhon Keys say that it may not have been like that last year, and maybe, just maybe, because of how much these guys are talking about how better they understand this defense, maybe there just wasn't enough bandwidth to have high energy last year when you're trying to learn everything. And you're drinking out of a fire hose and trying to figure out all these pressures and all these assignments and all these things that you're trying to do that no one on the field quite literally has ever done. Now, you do have new guys. You've got Pyburn, you've got Patrick Payton, you've got Mansour Delane, Halsey and Cooley are both new. Like, there are new guys out there, but the same token, you've got Whit out there, you've got Perk out there, you've got PJ Woodland, who played a little bit. Ashton Stamps is on the squad. Jacoby and Guillory played last year. So did Gabriel Relaford. McKinley and Bro played last year. Like you do have a nucleus of guys that in a given time there are 4 or 5 guys out there that were on the practice field in the fall in a given situation that had been in this system before. So it's not like everybody is brand new. So you got to get Pickett up to speed, and there are some guys that have to learn. But I think there's just a familiarity that's allowing for freedom, for energy, and as I wrote on the site today, fun. They look like they're having fun. And I asked Davhon Keys that, and he's like, the first 2 words that came out of his mouth were, "It's amazing." That's the level of confidence and enjoyment that this defense is getting out of what they're doing. And he's part of it, even though he's not a starter. he was able to step in and make it happen, and you're getting that all over the field with this team. It's really good. And look, we will talk a little bit next week about, well, is Clemson's offense good? Well, is Florida's offense good? Like, you haven't seen an elite offense. Like, how do you really know? I'll stand here and tell you, like, I guess I'll sit and tell you. I think they're good. I think it's a really good unit. I think it's fair to suggest that Clemson and Florida are underperforming on offense based on the talent level of their quarterback and the playmakers around them. I think it's fair to suggest that when you look at those veteran offensive lines, that their production, even outside of the LSU game, has not been to the standard that they hoped it would be. But I think LSU's defense is really good. That's just that's my read on the situation at this point. Don't take my word for it. Take a guy who played for a really good defense and won a national championship doing it. He's my partner on the LSU Sports Radio Network. He is Big Fave, Marlon Favorite. We'll talk to him next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Get your game day started with us here at Guarantee Media. Eagle 98.1 game day, 145 from Rouse's on Burbank. Charles Hannegriff and Matt Musso will be with you for 3 hours until 4:45. That's when the LSU Sports Radio Network takes over. That's myself, Brandon Taylor, and Marlon Favorite will be with you from 4:45 to about 6:15 or so. Then we'll hand it off to the broadcast team 30 minutes after the game goes final. Me, Marlon, and Brandon on the post-game show for the network. And then 90 minutes after the game goes final, it is Richard Dixon and Charles Hannegriff, Eagle 98.1 game day from right here in studio taking your phone calls. So get your game day started at 1:45 with us over on Eagle 98.1. When it's time for the LSU Sports Radio Network to come on, that's when you get me, Brandon Taylor, and our next guest, Marlon Favorite, 2007 national champion and member of the LSU Sports Radio Network. Fave, how we feeling?
What's up, Hunt, baby? Hey, Hunt, man, my phone charge right now got about 6% until we finish this interview.
Perfect. That's just enough, Fave. I would expect nothing less. I have a question for you. I honestly don't know how you're going to answer this. I'm very excited to see what your answer is. I've been doing this pregame show with you for, 9 years now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow, yeah.
What gives you more pride? What makes you happier? When a defensive lineman makes a big play, or when one of the West Bank boys on the perimeter, like Davhon or Stamps or Aaron Anderson, if they make a play on the outside? What do you appreciate more?
Now, why you going to do that to me, man?
I want to know I don't know what you're going to say.
See now, I got to go with the guys in the trenches. I love my West Bankers. I love them. But, Hunt, I'm not going to go outside of the trenches, man. You put me in a spot.
I didn't know what you were going to do. I mean, home is home, but I guess you got to love the D lineman. So, in that vein, I got you to disrespect the West Bank. That was goal number one here. Let's talk about those guys in the trenches. Nobody can run the ball on LSU. What have you seen that's so much better from this group than what we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years?
And off all the folks from the West Bank who might just be hearing that understand after I say my answer. First and foremost, this group is playing lights out right now. So normally I'll have their back, but I love the way that we just shut down the run. I mean, we go into the Clemson game and just, Clemson's going to run all up and down LSU, and LSU's defense was this and that last year, and you have to give credit what credit is due. Coach Kelly went in that portal, and he went ham. Bernard Gooden and, bringing in Peyton and, just bringing in Paul Pyburn and all of these guys to add a little more thump to that defense. You got a full throttle Cal Perkins coming, the Weiss boys, just make the D-line look even better that behind us looks like that. So long story short, I just think that especially the way the defensive line is playing right now, I couldn't be more proud.
One of the things that I wrote about this week for our website, LouisianaSports.net, that I want your take on in a big way. When you go back 3 years ago, Mekhi Wingo had to play 85% of LSU's snaps, and Jaquelin Roy right next to him played more than 70% of LSU's snaps. This year, the defensive lineman with the most snaps is Patrick Payton at about 61%, and none of the tackles have played more than 50% of the snaps. So they are rotating a ton of guys in, and they're not getting worn down. How big a deal is that for the defensive front when you're only having to play 45, 50% of the snaps?
It's huge. It must be. You know what? I'm on the West Bank right now, so they heard me talking trash. So I messed my phone up.
So let's talk D-line rotation. How big a deal is that?
So in all honesty, Hunt, it's huge because LSU at its best, historically speaking, we have depth on the D-line. I've shared these stories over our 9 years working together. How many times you probably lost count? Man, I wish we had depth on the D-line. Man, I wish we had depth on the D-line. You brought up Jaquaylin Roy and Mekhi Wingo, but you remember goddamn Christian and Dick Gilmore. Them boys was in them plays. There ain't no rotation. So, this is where LSU wins at. We won a national championship with D-line depth, and I know that's looking at one area, and, the skilled players and quarterbacks get a lot of props because they scored a touchdown, put the points to win. But I think this was, and Hunt, you're a stat guy, so that's sad. I'm a player. You might know this better than me. The year we won a national championship in 2007, I think we played like 4 or 5 games straight, and we only allowed like 20 yards. So, I look at that from a production standpoint, and to see that a little bit right now with that front, it's blowing my mind. I'm excited.
Dominic McKinley is a guy who's getting a lot of snaps. He was a 5-star recruit, got hurt in camp last year, played his best football late in that season, but now he's got Kyle Williams coaching him up, and you're seeing a lot of really positive things from McKinley. He's a big dude at 6'6", but what do you see when you watch McKinley play?
Well, the size stands out right away, but, the way he's able to make plays, his playmaking ability, he's always around the ball, he's always hustling to the ball, and you mentioned he's working with Kyle Williams right now. One thing Kyle's going to do is slow down the game for him, and that's improving his technique, and we're seeing that in real time right now. So, here's a kid who got thrown in the fire last year. We dealt with a lot of we lost Guillory up front. We had to throw some of them young boys in there, and that's what happened. And it's great to see him develop into a will soon be a all SEC player in one of these years.
I thought preseason that this was going to be a team that got a lot of sacks. I liked the guys on the edge. I thought they'd get some pressure from the inside. And then, of course, you got guys like Perk and Whit Weeks that have rushed the passer really well in their time. It hasn't been an abundance of sacks at this point, just 7 through 3 games. Is this a spot in this game against Southeastern where you should see a better pass rush? And what do you think is missing from the pass rush, if anything, or if you think they're doing a good job there?
I just think they're doing a good job. I think it's the situation LSU has been in. A lot of those would have been sacks that turned into pressures. AE, Harold Perkins to close out the Clemson game. So I think the sacks will pick up a bit more once we get heavy in the SEC play. But, to get an interior sack is huge. And I know Big Guillory had a big sack last week in a big game. And, he's a kid that, if I were to highlight somebody inside the trenches, from last week, it would be him. Man, Hunting, boy, me and BT was a little nervous when Florida had the running back leaked out, called a touchdown. Yeah. But Guillory was just right there. Hold on now. Run that back, Turbo. So that was cool to see the veterans finally get his shine, but just another example of the depth that LSU has up front right now.
Marlon Favorite, Big Fave, our guest here on the Hunt Palmer Show on this Thursday. Offensively, how do they get the run game going?
It does start with the offensive line. Do more of the last run drive you did throughout the season when we went heavy, overload left, and everybody was blocking up. They just have to continue to get in sync, right? And I'm not talking about the pop singing group back in the day. I'm just talking about getting in sync as an offensive line and having confidence. And, you got to draw it up, too. So, it is a great deal of I don't want to say pressure, but time in the film room on Coach Stallone to figure out exactly what package he want to roll with in terms of the run game, how we're going to make the run group versatile. Because, again, I think Hayden Durham is a good back. I think Harlan Berry has a lot of upside, and, when we need the pound run game going, that's Jackson. But it's not Leonard Fournette. It's not Darius Geis. It's not the big Allie Broussards we're used to, big 300-yard running backs. that we're used to rolling with. It's actually, more compact running back. So he's just going to have to be strategic in how he uses these guys in the running game.
What's the most important thing LSU's got to be better at this week against Southeastern before they go to Ole Miss to play in Oxford?
100% run blocking.
Okay.
They have to improve because the D-line is playing lights out. Hunt, normal focus on the line. If the line playing bad, we lose it. There's no winning with a bad line. I don't care if we got whoever we got at quarterback. That line has to be on point. And, when I look at it in the case of what we have to improve on before we get into this SEC play, Ole Miss, and no doubt, Hunt, that offensive line has to improve in its run blocking.
We'll see if they can get it done at 6:45 on Saturday night. Myself, Brandon Taylor, Marlon Favorite with you on the pregame show coming up at 4:45 from just outside Tiger Stadium. Fav, we'll see you on Saturday. Appreciate it. See you on Saturday, man. I have my get it done, get going at battery pack out there, so I won't be 6% like I am now. Holla. Hello, I appreciate it, Fave. That's big Fave. Marlon Favorite, 2007 national champion. Teammate of mine on Saturdays on the LSU Sports Radio Network. My guy loves the West Bank and loves D-line, and those are really the only two things he wants to talk about. And so I wanted to juxtapose the two together and see who he'd pick. He went with the D-line, had to stay inside the trenches, wouldn't give respect to the guys on the outside from the West Bank. So that's like I got big Fave. Looking forward to seeing him on Saturday. If you're on campus, come on by and see us. We're between the ramps of the PMAC broadcasting. We've got games up. There are places to buy cold drinks, get some food as well right before you go in the stadium. So it's kind of a last stop before you go in. Come by and see us. Brandon Taylor, Marlon Favorite, and myself will be there for 90 minutes broadcasting on the pregame show. Our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. When we come back, how many teams can win the Southeastern Conference? I'll get Taylor's thoughts, Beck's thoughts. We'll do that. Close out hour one.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge, swingeasygcbr.com. Brand new here in the capital city on Seagan, right there at Perkins. A driving range can be a bit of a drag. If it's rained a bunch, it can be sloppy. If it hadn't rained at all, you can't find any grass. Maybe nothing's growing. You got divots everywhere. The balls aren't any good. It's blazing hot outside. Driving range can be a tough sell. But what if you could go inside, hit off a mat, work on your swing with all the information that you're looking for, where the ball travels, how far it carries, what's your ball speed. You can get a look at where you contact the ball in terms of where your club face is at impact. All these tools to better your golf game, whether you're a scratch player or just a recreational golfer that is trying to get a little bit better. Swing Easy Golf Club can help you work on your game in one of their 3 air-conditioned bays with the swing simulator. Got comfortable chairs. You can bring some friends in there. Drink a beer, drink 2 beers, drink a glass of wine, watch the game, hang out, work on your golf game. It's a great place to do that. We were there last Friday, played some of the fun courses, the famous courses on their simulator, but you can also work on your game. If you don't have a good experience at a driving range somewhere in town, go to Swing Easy Golf Club right there on Seagan at Perkins. Swing Easy Golf Club online at swingeasygcbr.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Tell you all personal stories about the Sagrera Farms beef in our house. My wife thinks the burgers are significantly better than any burgers I've ever made at home with the ground beef that we got from Sagrera Farms. I can tell you for sure it's the best ribeye I've ever cooked at my house from Sagrera Farms. We also made a little call this weekend. We had some beef and broccoli at the house, homemade, and I took a New York strip that Sean had dropped off and cut it and seasoned it up and used that in our beef and broccoli. Game changer. If you want prime Angus beef in your freezer at the ready for your burgers, for your steaks, for your tacos, for your beef and broccoli, whatever the case may be, if you want the best, Sagrera Farms is where you need to get it, just outside Baton Rouge. Call Sean. I give you his number every single week. Prime Angus beef just outside Baton Rouge. 225-719-1723. Again, 225-719-1723. That's Sagrera Farms. They bring you our Thursday shows. All right, Georgia, in my opinion, could just wreck this entire segment over the course of the next few weeks because generally speaking, they're the best team. And last year, the SEC said, oh, yeah, Georgia, you're so good. Why don't you go to Tuscaloosa, go to Austin, Texas, go to Ole Miss, play all them, and then see how you do. And, well, they won the SEC. So maybe they're just better than everybody. They've been the standard in the conference for 5 years now. But I think the SEC is wide open. And I can make a damn strong case right now to me for, I think, 5 teams to win the SEC. I'm omitting Tennessee and Texas right now. I think Texas looks bad. I don't think they can win the SEC. They would have to have a renaissance offensively. And the same is true for LSU, but at least I've seen Garrett Nussmeier do it. At least I've seen Barryon Brown do it. At least I've seen Aaron Anderson do it. At least I've seen Caden Durham do it. At least I've seen Joe Sloan do it. So I have more confidence in that than what I'm watching at Texas right now. But I think absolutely Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, to me, Alabama, based on what I've seen the last 2 weeks, and they don't have a conference loss, and Texas A&M are significant threats to win the conference. I don't have Tennessee there yet. I don't have Missouri there. I don't have Texas there right now. But I think there are absolutely 5 teams that can win the league. And keep in mind, like, that's only 5 of 16. I get it. But in the Saban years, how many were you saying at this point in the calendar? Like 2? Maybe 3 at this point? I can make a real good case for 5. I'll toss it to y'all. Taylor, what are your thoughts on that start there? I mean, to me, it's Georgia, LSU, Oklahoma, Bama, and A&M. Are any of those wildly off base? Am I buying too much Ty Simpson against Wisconsin?
I don't think they're off base. For me, in 3 weeks, maybe I would include those schools. I have 3. It's LSU, Georgia, Oklahoma. Look, Ty Simpson's looked great. I got to see it against somebody with a pulse. Played Florida State, wasn't great. Now, that was his first start, so I'll give him a little bit, but I got to see it. And then, look, I get A&M. Everybody wants to say Marcel Reed's playing great. He's really not, though. Like, 57% completion on the year, 46% against Notre Dame. Now, it was good enough to win the game, but I think they're winning with him. I don't necessarily think they're winning because of him. Plus, it's Texas A&M, so they're going to lose 3 or 4 games.
You're buying KC Concepcion and Craven as the run after the catch stuff is better than what, because he threw for 360.
He did.
So I
just think they're a little too high and low. He is a little too high and low for me right now. That could change.
My problem with Alabama is their schedule is not easy. I mean, they've got to go to Athens this week or next week, and then they've got to play. I know you're gonna laugh at me, but they're playing Vanderbilt. Yes, they're playing a good Vanderbilt team, Hunt. I don't care what you say. Vanderbilt is going to compete with them. Mm-hmm. Then they've got to go on the road to Missouri, which is probably not that much of a task, but Bo Prabula's look good for Missouri, and they can score. They got to play Tennessee at home. They play Oklahoma at home. They play LSU at home, and then they got to go play Auburn on the road in Auburn. So
Auburn's better than people think they are.
Yeah, Auburn's going to be. I think they're going to be
on
better.
This list.
No, I don't think they could win it. They can't throw the ball enough, but their running game will keep them in games.
So I think Alabama's schedule is too much. It's too challenging for them to get there.
You can really say that about most teams.
I think Tennessee,
Bama's stuff is all at home except for at Georgia.
It is
probably 7-1 is probably what you're looking for.
Yep.
Yeah, I think so. But I was going to say Tennessee. You didn't include them, and I'm not going to sit here and say that I would put money on Tennessee winning the SEC, but their schedule is not that bad. They do have to go on the road to Tuscaloosa, but they get Oklahoma at home, and other than that, I mean, that's pretty much it. They had Georgia already, so now they've got UAB, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Kentucky. They've got New Mexico State at Florida and Vanderbilt. Like, I could see them.
Ooh, I didn't realize it was that easy.
Yeah.
I mean, Oklahoma is going to be tough.
Oklahoma's going to be tough, but it's at home. And then they go on the road to Alabama. And if they win that one, I think I could see them going 7-1.
And they throttled Oklahoma a year
we
ago.
just assumed that Texas was going to be really good.
We did.
And that was going to be a really hard game for them to win. Now they'll be a favorite in that game.
Yeah.
So that's shifted in the last 3 weeks since we've seen that. So, yeah, I mean, Oklahoma is absolutely in the picture.
I would throw Tennessee in there. And I think I would take Tennessee and then take Alabama out. That's what I would do.
But would you keep A&M?
I would. A&M's tough, but
I can't do it.
Yeah, they've got some. I don't know. And even though Texas hasn't looked great, I still think having to go on the road and play Texas at the end of the year is not going to be easy.
Their defense has not been good.
Yeah,
I am, as we go through these schedules, and I look at Notre Dame, who has played themselves out of it, and I think about the national landscape. Clemson looks like garbage.
But Miami looks really good.
I know, but Miami can win the league and get the automatic. I'm thinking about a 9-3 SEC team getting in.
Florida State might be there too. Florida State's got a chance.
That's a good win over Alabama. Interesting stuff. I think that's fascinating. I think it's more wide open than it has been, and that's just, I think, by nature of the fact that Saban's machine is no longer there. Kirby's is there, but you feel like folks can play with them. They lost a couple times last year, and they lost a game this year. So then they were played to a very close game this year by Tennessee already. So you feel like there's wiggle room there. Just a thought. Still got a lot to do in our second hour here. Looking forward to it. We'll talk to Chris Blair coming up in 20 minutes. Also talk to Luke Johnson about the New Orleans Saints. I want to talk some Heisman when we come back. We will do that after National Headlines and Sports Center. It's a Thursday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. I was touring their facility. This is about a month ago now, and it's so amazing. And one of the things that I told you about numerous times is when you buy a new vehicle, a lot of times you get to sit with one of the sales folks and you get to see all the features of it. In this part of the world, you get out on that blacktop in the middle of August, September, and it's 1,000 degrees. And yeah, you're glad you get to see all this, but you're also boiling hot. You don't have to deal with that at Genesis Baton Rouge because they've built a facility right there where you can drive that car in climate controlled and go through everything. It's that kind of attention to detail that to me just separates the folks at Genesis. It's an experience to be a Genesis driver. Get on by and see them, airline at PQ. Check out the inventory at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. That's GenesisofBatonRouge.com.